Welcome to a deep dive into something that really touches everyone, doesn't it? Whether you're an elite athlete, maybe a busy professional, or, just getting through the day. We're talking about that incredible human capacity to push through fatigue or injury. We admire it, right? We strive for it sometimes. But what exactly is happening when we push those limits? Today, we're unpacking a really cutting-edge AI-driven scientific study called the endurance paradox. It takes a deep look at the intricate science behind this drive. And our mission really is to explore not just the biology and psychology, which is fascinating stuff, but also its surprising societal costs, its ripple effect on, well, the whole planet, and the transformative, sometimes unsettling role of artificial intelligence in truly understanding and maybe even influencing this very human trait. So get ready for some insights that might just redefine what you think strength and resilience really mean. Okay, let's dive in. When we talk about pushing through, it's far more than just physical muscle, isn't it? This study makes a crucial distinction right off the bat when it comes to fatigue itself. There's peripheral fatigue, which is that feeling, that burning sensation in your muscles when you hit the wall. Your legs are just screaming, no more. It's about things like oxygen delivery issues or metabolic byproducts building up.
Right. And then there's the other side of the coin. Central fatigue. That's different. It's more like hitting a mental brick wall. Your brain tells you to stop, even if your muscles technically could keep going for a bit longer. It starts in the central nervous system, involves neurotransmitters, and what's truly fascinating here is the recovery difference. You see, central fatigue, that can resolve in minutes. You can mentally reset, so to speak. But peripheral fatigue, that can linger for hours, sometimes days, and really impact your sustained performance. We also see this complex hormonal dance during exertion. You've got cortisol mobilizing energy, growth hormone helping with repair, adrenaline getting the body ready for immediate action. But, and this is a big but, this isn't without a trade-off. Chronically high cortisol, for example, that can actually lead to muscle breakdown and mess with your immune function. So it's a clear exchange, really. Immediate performance versus long-term physiological integrity.
So we've got the body covered the physical side. But beyond that, the mind plays an absolutely decisive role here, doesn't it? The study highlights these key psychological constructs. Things like grit, that's sustained effort toward long-term goals, even with setbacks. And self-efficacy, which is basically your belief in your own ability to actually achieve something.
What's really striking to me is how these aren't just motivational buzzwords. They seem to be like trainable cognitive superpowers. Athletes, for instance, use them through goal setting, mental imagery, positive self-talk. And they literally manage pain and extend what they thought were their limits.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings up a really important question. Is our pain tolerance fixed? Is it just something we're born with? The study dives deep into this. Research shows endurance athletes, they have significantly higher pain tolerance than non-athletes. Even when their initial pain thresholds are similar, it suggests they have a more efficient system of endogenous pain inhibition, like built-in painkillers kicking in better. And it's dynamic. It changes based on your mood, sleep quality, even your culture, which we can get into. Wow, so it's trainable too.
Oh, absolutely. It's trainable. And psychologically, traits like grit, they can be developed. But it's not all nurture, it's important to note. The study points out a substantial genetic influence on grit. There's a heritability estimate of about 37% for its perseverance component, which is, similar to other personality traits.
Okay, it makes sense that pushing our bodies takes a physical toll. But I've always wondered about the mental cost. How does all this intense physical and psychological strain actually affect our ability to think clearly, to make good decisions when we're under pressure? The study uncovers some, frankly, unsettling truths here. Decision-making under duress is critically impaired. We become prone to cognitive biases like confirmation bias, where you only see what confirms your beliefs or anchoring, and we experience decision fatigue. That leads to reduced self-control, increased impulsivity. Not great. In high-stakes jobs like medicine, think about surgeons or ER docs, excessive cognitive load can easily lead to impaired judgment and more errors.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where AI, artificial intelligence, truly transforms our understanding of these human vulnerabilities. AI models, they can simulate human decision-making with, well, remarkable precision now. They're trained on millions of psychological experiments. They can predict responses, reaction times, way beyond what any single human researcher could possibly process or track. So AI offers this profound science of the science approach. It crunches these vast, disparate data sets, physiological, psychological, genetic, even historical data, and it reveals subtle correlations that human researchers might completely miss. It also acts as this powerful, maybe slightly unsettling mirror. It reflects our inherent cognitive vulnerabilities and biases right back at us, and that raises some pretty critical questions about how this deep understanding might eventually be used or misused.
That's a powerful point about AI holding up a mirror, a potentially uncomfortable mirror.
Sure.
So, okay, what does this all mean for real people in real life outside the lab? This whole phenomenon of pushing through, it's so deeply woven into our history, our society. It's often glorified, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely glorified. And we see this very clearly in the case studies the research looked at. In sports, you have these extreme feats, like Dean Karnazes running 350 miles nonstop. Can you even imagine? Or that insane 3-day, 183-game tennis match at Wimbledon a few years back. And then there are the famous stories of athletes playing through really severe injuries. Jack Youngblood playing in the Super Bowl with a broken leg.
Wow.
Donovan McNabb playing quarterback with his fibula broken in 3 places. Or Ronnie Lott, the football player who famously had the tip of his finger amputated so he could keep playing sooner.
Incredible stories. But it's not just the rarefied world of elite sports, is it? I mean, in military contexts, training pushes personnel to their absolute physiological limits. Think about basic training or special forces selection. That often leads to significant muscle damage, high rates of musculoskeletal injuries, just from things like those long road marches carrying heavy rucksacks. And then there's the workplace. Most of us can relate to this. Increasing demands, pressure, leads to widespread burnout, lower job satisfaction, and potentially serious chronic health risks down the line, like type 2 diabetes or heart disease.
Yeah, and a key insight the study really hammers home is this pervasive societal narrative. The story we tell ourselves that glorifies pushing through, that frames suffering almost as a necessary rite of passage for achievement. But this narrative often obscures the severe long-term costs. It creates, as the study puts it, victims and losers. The research details profound psychological effects, chronic fatigue, mood disturbances, PTSD in some cases, depression, anxiety, even suicidal thoughts in severe burnout situations. And for athletes, when a career ends abruptly due to injury, it can lead to this devastating loss of identity, self-concept, social status, which results in significant psychological distress and a much lower quality of life. What's striking is how common these negative outcomes are across such diverse environments: sports, military, the corporate world. It really highlights a kind of universal human vulnerability under prolonged duress.
And culture plays a huge role in how we experience and express this, right? The study shows how cultural norms dictate pain expression. Some cultures encourage vocalization, being open about pain, while others value stoicism, keeping a stiff upper lip. And that affects not just the pain tolerance people report, but also whether and how they seek help. Different cultures also view sacrifice very differently. Japanese culture, for instance, often emphasizes dedication to the community or the company, while traditional Chinese culture might place a high value on parental sacrifice for their children's well-being.
Precisely. And this raises a really important, maybe slightly worrying question. Can these cultural norms actually create hidden vulnerabilities? The study really brings this home. If individuals feel pressured by cultural expectations to suppress their pain or distress, maybe not complain at work, or tough it out in training, it can significantly delay them seeking help when they need it. Or, interestingly, it can manifest as what the study calls atypical self-harm.
Atypical self-harm. What might that look like in, say, a common workplace setting, so listeners can maybe recognize it?
Well, it might not be physical self-harm in the way we usually think of it. It could be things like a really harsh, self-degrading inner dialogue, constantly beating yourself up mentally, or even unconsciously engaging in behaviors that sabotage success, like intentionally underperforming or even losing jobs because the pressure to push through has become unbearable, but expressing that directly isn't culturally sanctioned. It's a kind of internalized attack that might go completely unrecognized by external observers, making it harder to address. It really underscores the urgent need for culturally informed approaches to health and well-being.
That's a profound point. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many of us have unconsciously bought into that narrative of just push through, maybe at our own long-term expense? The study really pulls back the curtain on that hidden damage. So, okay, if the science of human endurance offers pathways to enhanced performance, it also seems to reveal this more unsettling side. How that same science or that drive can be leveraged for manipulation and exploitation, especially when power dynamics are involved.
Oh, absolutely. Psychological manipulation in these contexts is indeed pervasive. The study gives examples. In sports, you might have coaches using a very controlling style or outright toxic leadership. That's been shown to increase injury rates and actually reduce athlete motivation in the long run. In the military, concepts like unlimited liability, the idea that you owe everything, even your life, combined with intense psychological conditioning, push soldiers to extreme limits. This can sometimes lead to profound moral injury. That's a deep wound to the soul, really, that happens when individuals are forced, maybe subtly or overtly, into actions that utterly betray their core moral beliefs.
That sounds devastating.
It is. And in the workplace. Positive traits we admire, like passion, loyalty, commitment, they can paradoxically make employees vulnerable to exploitation, leading to overwork, burnout, often justified by employers through things like assumptions of voluntariness, well, they chose to work late, or vague promises of compensatory rewards down the line. What you see is this consistent pattern. An individual's endurance is amplified, pushed, and directed by external forces, often serving their objectives, frequently at the individual's long-term expense.
This brings us right back to AI. We've talked about human vulnerabilities and how AI can mirror them, even reveal them in new ways.
Yeah.
But if AI holds such power to analyze our limits, our breaking points, it almost feels like a new frontier for potential manipulation, doesn't it? How do we ensure it's a force for good and not something that can be, well, wielded against us? The increasing integration of AI into human performance management thing, tracking employees, athletes, it introduces a whole new layer of ethical challenges, particularly around data privacy. We're talking about really sensitive biometric data, cognitive performance data.
Exactly. And this kind of data often falls under what regulations like GDPR in Europe call special category data, like health information. It requires really stringent protections, but there are significant challenges. How do you get truly valid, informed consent for collecting and using this data? And then there's the sheer difficulty, maybe impossibility, of completely deleting data once it's been processed by complex AI learning systems. And think about the risks. Cyber attacks targeting this data, or just unauthorized usage, it could severely impact individuals' careers, their insurance rates, their psychological well-being, and then there's the whole issue of algorithmic bias.
Right, I've heard about that.
AI systems, if they're trained on non-diverse data sets, maybe data mostly from one demographic group, they can inadvertently perpetuate or even amplify existing societal biases. This could lead to discriminatory practices in areas like player selection in sports, hiring decisions, even medical diagnoses like dermatology, where an AI might be less accurate for certain skin types, leading to misdiagnoses or unfair treatment.
So it really is a double-edged sword. But surely there are those who'd argue AI's predictive power is only a force for good, especially in high-stakes environments. What's the strongest counter-argument the study presents against that maybe overly optimistic view?
Well, the study argues that the very power that makes AI useful for good, like predicting cognitive load to prevent errors, is the same power that makes it risky. It's the potential for subtle manipulation. AI could, perhaps, steer individuals towards hidden objectives set by whoever controls the AI, gradually eroding human autonomy without the person even realizing it. Think personalized nudges that exploit known cognitive biases. The counter-argument isn't that AI can't do good, but that its potential for misuse is profound and directly linked to existing power structures and ethical shortcomings in our society.
That's the core tension, then. It seems like the study really emphasizes that AI's potential for good is inextricably intertwined with our own societal ethics.
Exactly. While AI offers this immense potential, like that real-time cognitive load monitoring you mentioned, preventing errors in aviation or surgery, it simultaneously creates significant risk of manipulation, subtle steering, erosion of autonomy. The ethical failures we see in AI today often serve as that mirror again, reflecting existing societal biases and power imbalances. So, true ethical AI, the study argues, isn't just a technical problem to solve. It's fundamentally linked to achieving a more ethical human society first.
That's a powerful connection. Our ethics as a society reflected in the AI we create. It really broadens the scope. But what does this all mean when we zoom out even further to our relationship with the planet itself? The study argues the very same collective human drive, that urge to push through perceived limits, when we apply that to the natural world, well, it has some really serious environmental fallout.
Yeah, that's a key insight here. How our collective ambition, often fueled by what's called an anthropocentric worldview, this belief that humans are the center of everything and nature is just a pile of resources for us to exploit. How that view has led directly to critical ecological imbalances. We're talking about widespread environmental degradation, mass extinction events happening right now, climate change, driven primarily by burning fossil fuels and deforestation. and rampant overconsumption, where humanity currently uses resources at a rate that outpaces Earth's ability to regenerate by about 70% each year.
70%.
70%. The study characterizes the modern Western attitude, though it's more global now, as viewing nature essentially as fuel for endless economic growth. A system that, by its nature, cannot tolerate sustainability because sustainability implies limits.
And the study draws this really powerful parallel, doesn't it? It argues that the machinery of modernity, encompassing industrial capitalism, consumer culture, it essentially transforms both nature and humans into fuel for this relentless, endless growth.
Precisely. The implication is stark. The health of human society, which we see suffering in widespread burnout, anxiety, mental health crises, that health is intrinsically linked to the health of the planet. Our unsustainable practices towards nature mirror and likely exacerbate unsustainable practices towards our own human well-being. So addressing environmental issues isn't just about finding technological fixes like renewable energy, although that's vital. It's also about a fundamental shift in human values, in our collective self-image, our relationship with nature.
Okay, so how do we make that shift? How do we move from this destructive pattern of constantly pushing through planetary boundaries to something more balanced, more sustainable? Feels like a monumental task.
Yeah. It is monumental, but the study suggests it requires, first, a profound philosophical shift. Moving away from that human-centered, anthropocentric view towards something more like an ecocentric or stewardship-based ethic, where humanity recognizes itself not as separate from or master of nature, but as an inseparable part of the broader ecosystem. And this means consciously channeling our incredible human ingenuity, our drive, our ambition, towards what the study calls regenerative ambition.
Regenerative ambition, I like that.
Yeah, it's about actively working to restore ecological balance, fostering symbiotic relationships with nature, moving beyond this paradigm of just endless, unsustainable growth towards a more holistic kind of flourishing for everyone and everything. And AI, interestingly, could potentially help here too. By modeling complex ecological systems, predicting potential tipping points like the collapse of an ice sheet or a fishery, it could provide crucial guidance for policymakers to build systemic resilience before it's too late.
Okay, so as you're listening to this, maybe consider how often you felt that pressure, that internal or external push to just keep going, maybe at work, in your fitness goals, or even just managing daily life. This study offers some pretty clear recommendations for how we might foster a healthier, more prosperous human society and a more balanced relationship with our world. What are the key takeaways for us, the listeners?
Okay, let's break it down. First, and perhaps most importantly, we need to consciously prioritize holistic human well-being over just unchecked performance. This means actively working to de-glorify suffering as the only path to success. We need to promote narratives that value sustainable effort, yes, but also recovery, rest, self-care. It also means implementing comprehensive health programs in all environments. Sports teams, military units, corporations programs that focus on early detection of burnout and mental health issues with genuinely accessible support systems. And crucially, the study emphasizes fostering identity diversification from an early age, especially in high-performance fields like sports or maybe even academia, helping people build a sense of self that isn't solely tied to their performance role to mitigate that devastating impact of identity loss if or when that career ends.
Right, building a broader sense of self. And what about AI? Given its potential and its risks, what's our imperative there?
Second, we absolutely must develop and deploy AI ethically and responsibly. This isn't optional, it's critical. It demands human-centered AI design from the ground up, involving not just tech people, but ethicists, social scientists, the people who will be affected. It requires mandated transparency and algorithmic decision-making. Individuals need to understand how AI influences decisions made about them. And we need robust human review mechanisms, so AI isn't just making calls in a black box. Stringent data governance and privacy frameworks are essential to prevent that unauthorized exploitation of sensitive personal data we talked about. And we have to actively combat algorithmic bias, ensuring the data used to train these systems is diverse and representative of the whole population, not just a segment.
Makes sense. And how do we build the right kind of culture, the right environment in our organizations and communities to support this?
Well, that leads to the third point. We need to cultivate ethical leadership and healthier organizational cultures. Leaders need to be trained in principles like respect, accountability, justice. They need to understand how positive traits like passion and loyalty can be unintentionally or intentionally exploited. This means establishing clear boundaries to protect people against chronic overexertion. It means fostering psychological safety, creating environments where individuals feel safe to express fatigue, voice concerns, or admit mistakes without fear of reprisal or judgment.
The psychological safety piece feels so important. Okay, so we have individual well-being, responsible AI, ethical cultures. What's the final piece?
The final piece is that bigger picture shift we discussed. Fourth, we must collectively reevaluate humanity's relationship with nature and actively embrace that idea of regenerative ambition. This requires that deep collective consciousness shift towards ecocentrism, seeing humanity as truly inseparable from the natural world. It means channeling our ambition and our amazing technological ingenuity into building genuinely sustainable systems for energy, for food, for waste management. And crucially, learning to respect planetary boundaries, maybe using AI wisely to help us anticipate those ecological tipping points before we cross them.
So there you have it, a really deep dive into the endurance paradox. We've seen how this fundamental human drive to push our limits is this incredibly complex dance of biology, psychology, maybe even our genes. It leads to extraordinary achievements, no doubt, but often it's severe, sometimes hidden, costs to individuals, and as we've seen, costs to our planet.
And we've explored AI's powerful and really dual role in all of this. It's a tool that offers unprecedented understanding and potential for optimization, yet it's also this mirror, reflecting our own societal biases and creating entirely new ethical challenges that demand our urgent attention.
So the ultimate question this deep dive leaves us with, for you to maybe mull over, is this. Is our relentless drive to transcend limits solely a path to greater glory, or is it also perhaps a hidden vulnerability? And maybe more importantly, how can we redefine strength? Not just as the ability to push through anything, but also incorporating the wisdom to know when to pause, when to heal, and how to foster sustainable flourishing for ourselves, for our communities, and ultimately for our shared planet. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this has given you plenty to think about.
This is DigitView.